The rain had been falling for hours, turning the streets of Newark into rivers of reflected neon and shadows. It was the kind of November rain that soaked through your coat in seconds, cold and relentless, drumming against the windows of Rosie's diner with a steady rhythm that had become background noise to Emma Richardson's thoughts. She wiped down the counter for what felt like the 100th time that night, her shoulders aching from the double shift. The clock on the wall read 10:47 p.m. 13 minutes until closing, and the last customer, a truck driver nursing his third cup of coffee, had finally paid his bill and disappeared into the stormy night, his 18-wheeler hissing to life in the parking lot. Emma exhaled slowly, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. 28 years old, and this was her life. Endless shifts at a diner that smelled permanently of grease and burnt coffee, counting tips that never quite stretched far enough, studying medical textbooks in whatever precious moments of silence she could steal. Her nursing school textbook sat in her locker in the back, waiting for the hour-long bus ride home when she'd force her exhausted eyes to focus on anatomy and pharmacology. Another thrilling Friday night at Rosie's, she muttered to herself, her reflection staring back from the chrome napkin dispenser. Dark circles under her eyes, the name tag pinned slightly crooked on her uniform. Emma, in faded red letters. She looked tired. She felt tired, the kind of tired that sleep couldn't fix. The diner was empty now except for her. Marcus, the evening cook, had already left through the front, his motorcycle roaring away 20 minutes ago, eager to get home to his family. The other waitress, Carol, had clocked out at 9, leaving Emma to handle the final hour alone. It was a routine she knew by heart. Wipe the tables, refill the condiment bottles, prep the coffee station for the morning shift, take out the trash, lock up, catch the 11:15 bus on Market Street. She moved through the motions mechanically, her mind elsewhere. The rent was due in 4 days, $350 short even with this week's tips. The payment plan for her nursing school tuition was already 2 weeks overdue. The collection agency had called again that morning, their automated voice cheerful and threatening in equal measure. Her phone, cracked screen and all, sat in her apron pocket like a weight, full of unread messages she didn't have the energy to face. Emma grabbed the trash bag from behind the counter, tying it closed with practiced efficiency. The bag was heavier than usual. Friday nights always generated more waste. She hoisted it with both hands, feeling the strain in her lower back, and headed toward the kitchen. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as she pushed through the swinging door. The kitchen was clean now, stainless steel surfaces gleaming under the harsh light. Marcus had done a good job tonight. She made a mental note to thank him tomorrow. The back door was just past the industrial dishwasher, a heavy metal door with a push-bar exit. This was the part of closing she always did quickly. The back alley wasn't dangerous exactly, but it wasn't pleasant either. Narrow, poorly lit, lined with dumpsters from the neighboring businesses, a dry cleaner, a convenience store, a shuttered electronics repair shop. During the day, it was just an alley. At night, especially in the rain, it felt like the kind of place where you didn't want to linger. Emma pushed the door open with her hip, the rain immediately hitting her face. She hadn't bothered with a jacket. It was just going to be 30 seconds, maybe less. The dumpster was 15 feet away, its green metal lid already propped open from the morning shift. The rain was coming down harder than she'd realized. It soaked through her uniform almost immediately, plastered her hair to her face. She squinted against the downpour, her sneakers splashing through puddles that had formed in the uneven pavement. That's when she saw them. At first, it didn't register. Her mind, tired and distracted, took a moment to process what her eyes were showing her. There were 2 figures in the alley, partially obscured by the shadows between streetlights. One was tall, leaning heavily against the brick wall. The other was small, held close against the larger figure's chest. Emma froze, the trash bag still gripped in her hands. The rain created a curtain of white noise, but she could hear something else now. Labored breathing, a low sound of pain barely audible over the storm. The taller figure shifted, and the security light from the neighboring building caught them for just a moment. It was a man. She could see that now. His face was pale in the harsh light, drawn with pain. His expensive-looking coat was dark, whether from the rain or something else she couldn't tell. His white shirt beneath it was definitely stained, though. Even from this distance, even in the rain and poor light, she could see the dark patches spreading across the fabric. And in his arms he held a child, a little girl maybe 7 or 8 years old wearing a pink raincoat. Her small face was pressed against the man's chest, her eyes closed. She wasn't moving. Emma's nursing training kicked in before her common sense could catch up. She dropped the trash bag, water splashing around her feet, and took a step forward. "Are you—" she started, but the man's head snapped up at the sound of her voice. His eyes locked onto hers. Even in the darkness, she could see the intensity there. Desperation and something harder, something that made her instinctively take a step back. This wasn't some random person who'd had an accident. There was something about the way he held himself, the calculated way he assessed her despite his obvious pain, that set off alarm bells in her mind. "Please," he said, his voice rough but controlled. He had an accent. Italian, she thought. "My daughter." He took a step toward her and immediately stumbled, catching himself against the wall with his free hand. The movement caused him to wince, a sound of pain escaping through clenched teeth. The little girl in his arms stirred slightly but didn't wake. Emma's heart was pounding now. Every instinct told her to run back inside, lock the door, call 911. This was Newark. You didn't get involved in things that weren't your business. You especially didn't get involved when a man was clearly injured in a back alley at 11 o'clock at night, holding an unconscious child. But the child, what happened? Emma heard herself ask, her voice steadier than she felt. She took another step closer, her sneakers squelching in the rain. "Is she hurt?" The man's jaw tightened. Up close now, Emma could see more details. He was maybe in his mid-40s, with dark hair going gray at the temples. His coat was expensive, cashmere probably, and even soaked with rain and stained it screamed money. His watch caught the light, a Rolex. His shoes were Italian leather, now ruined by the wet pavement. This wasn't someone who belonged in this alley behind a rundown diner. "She's in shock," the man managed, his breathing labored. I can't go to a hospital, they'll find us." Emma felt ice run down her spine that had nothing to do with the rain. "Who will find you?" she asked, though part of her didn't want to know the answer. The man's eyes moved past her, scanning the alley entrance, the roof lines, the shadows. He was looking for threats. Everything about his body language, despite his injury, was that of someone trained to assess danger. "Please," he said again, and this time there was something raw in his voice that cut through Emma's fear. "I'm not asking for me. My daughter, she's not hurt physically, but she needs somewhere safe, just for a few hours, until I can make a call." Emma looked at the child in his arms. The little girl's face was pale, her dark hair plastered to her cheeks just like Emma's own. She was breathing. Emma could see the slight rise and fall of her small chest, but there was something wrong. The child should have woken by now, should have reacted to the cold rain, to being held so tightly. Shock, trauma. Emma had studied it in her textbooks, had seen it during her clinical rotations at the hospital. When the mind encounters something too terrible to process, sometimes it just shuts down. "What's your name?" Emma asked the man, stalling, trying to think. A flicker of something crossed his face. Surprise, maybe, that she was still standing there talking to him instead of running. "Vittorio," he said after a moment's hesitation. "Vittorio Marconi. And this is Sophia. Marconi." The name rang a bell somewhere in the back of Emma's mind. Something she'd seen in the news maybe, or heard mentioned in whispered conversations at the diner. Newark wasn't a small town. There were names you learned to recognize, families you learned to avoid. Her hands were shaking now, and not from the cold. This was a decision point. She understood that with perfect clarity. Whatever she did in the next 60 seconds would change everything. "I'm a waitress," Emma said, the words tumbling out. "I'm not a doctor. I'm still in nursing school. I can't, please." Vittorio took another step forward, and Emma could see him struggling to stay upright. Blood was dripping down his leg now, mixing with the rainwater, creating dark rivulets that ran toward the storm drain. "I'm not asking you to fix this. I just need a few hours. Somewhere they won't look. I have people, they're coming, but I need time." "You need a hospital," Emma said, her professional training overriding her fear for a moment. "That's a serious injury. You could have internal bleeding, organ damage." "Hospital means police," Vittorio interrupted. "Police means we're dead. Both of us. They have people everywhere." Emma's mind was racing. This was insane. This was dangerous. This was exactly the kind of situation every survival instinct told you to avoid. She should go back inside, lock the door, and pretend she never saw anything. In Newark, you learned young. You didn't see nothing. You didn't know nothing. You kept your head down and survived. But the little girl, Sophia made a small sound, a whimper in her sleep, and Vittorio's arms tightened around her protectively. In that moment, he didn't look like a dangerous man. He looked like a father, terrified and desperate, trying to protect his child from something unspeakable. Emma thought of her own father, dead now for 5 years. He'd been a good man, a bus driver who worked double shifts to keep food on the table, who taught her to help people when she could. "We don't have much, Emma girl," he used to say, "but we've got our humanity. Don't ever lose that." God, she missed him. "How did you find this place?" Emma asked, still trying to process to understand. "Random," Vittorio admitted, his voice getting weaker. "We were driving. They hit us on Route 21, ran us off the road. I got away, but barely. Saw your light. Figured, nowhere place off the main street, somewhere to hide for a moment, to think." He was fading. Emma could see it in his eyes, the way his grip on Sophia was loosening. He was going to collapse soon, maybe minutes, and then what? A body in the alley, a traumatized child, and Emma caught in the middle of whatever this was. "Okay," Emma heard herself say, the word out before she could stop it. "Okay, come inside." Through the back, Vittorio's eyes widened slightly. "You'll help us?" "I'm going to stabilize you enough that you don't die in the next hour," Emma said, her voice harder now, nurse mode kicking in. "Then you're going to explain exactly what's happening. And then you're going to leave and I'm going to forget this ever happened, understood?" It was a lie. She knew she'd never forget this, but it was something to say, some way to make this feel less like she was throwing her entire life away. Vittorio nodded, the movement causing him to sway dangerously. "Can you walk?" Emma asked. "Yes." "Then follow me, and move quickly. I need to lock up before anyone sees." Emma turned and headed back toward the door, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. Behind her, she heard Vittorio's uneven footsteps, the sound of his labored breathing. She held the door open as he stumbled through, Sophia still clutched in his arms. Up close, in the fluorescent light of the kitchen, Emma could see the full extent of his injury. His shirt was soaked with blood on the left side, and there was a tear in the fabric. A wound, maybe 4 inches below his rib cage, not actively spurting, which was good. No major artery hit, but bleeding steadily. He'd lost a lot already, judging by the paleness of his skin, the slight tremor in his hands. "Storage room," Emma said, pointing to a door at the back of the kitchen. "In there. Now." Vittorio nodded and moved toward it, leaving a trail of water and blood on the clean floor. Emma's mind was already cataloging what she'd need to clean that up, how to make it look like nothing had happened. She went back to the door, grabbed the forgotten trash bag, tossed it in the dumpster, and came back inside. She locked the deadbolt with shaking fingers, then went to the front of the diner and locked that entrance too. She flipped the open sign to closed, pulled down the shades on the front windows. The security camera. God, the security camera. Emma looked up at the small dome camera in the corner of the dining room. It recorded to a DVR in Mr. Rossetti's office upstairs. He checked it maybe once a week, usually only if there was a problem. But still, she'd deal with that later. First things first. Emma hurried back to the kitchen, grabbing the first aid kit from under the sink. It was basic, bandages, antiseptic, tape, not nearly enough for what she was dealing with, but it was a start. She grabbed clean dish towels too, a bottle of vodka from behind the bar, for sterilization, her mind rationalized, and a bottle of water. In the storage room, Vittorio had managed to lower himself onto the floor, his back against a shelf of canned goods. Sophia was laid gently beside him, her head pillowed on his folded coat. The little girl's eyes were still closed, but Emma could see her breathing was steady. Good. Vittorio was pressing his hand against his side, blood seeping through his fingers. Emma knelt beside him, setting down her supplies. "I need to see it," she said. Vittorio removed his hand, and Emma lifted his shirt carefully. The wound was a clean cut, maybe 2 inches long, just below his ribs on the left side. Not a projectile wound like she'd half expected. This was a blade. "What happened?" she asked, opening the antiseptic. "Car accident," Vittorio said through gritted teeth. "Metal, piece of the door frame." Another lie. Emma knew what knife wounds looked like from her ER rotation, but she didn't call him on it. Plausible deniability, some part of her brain whispered. The less you know, the better. "This is going to hurt," Emma warned, pouring vodka over a clean towel. Vittorio nodded, his jaw set. Emma began cleaning the wound as gently as she could, but there was no way to make it painless. To his credit, Vittorio barely made a sound, just a sharp intake of breath and a tightening around his eyes. "You're lucky," Emma said, focusing on her work. "It's not deep enough to have hit anything vital, but you've lost blood and there's serious risk of infection. You need antibiotics, proper stitches, a hospital." "Can't," Vittorio said simply. "Then you need to tell me what alternatives you have," Emma said, applying pressure with a clean towel. "Because I can bandage this, but without proper medical care you're looking at sepsis, shock, possibly worse." "I have a doctor," Vittorio said. "Private, he'll come. But I need to make the call from somewhere secure and I needed somewhere to wait. An hour, maybe 2. Emma applied a tight bandage, using most of the first aid kit supplies. It wasn't pretty, but it would hold for now. "You're going to need to keep pressure on this," she said. "And you need fluids. When's the last time you ate or drank anything?" "This morning." Emma stood up and went to the storage shelves, grabbing a bottle of orange juice and some crackers. "Drink this, slowly. The sugar will help." While Vittorio drank, Emma turned her attention to Sophia. The little girl was still unconscious, or asleep. It was hard to tell. Emma checked her pulse. Steady, if a bit fast. Her skin was cold from the rain, but her color was decent. No obvious injuries. "Sophia," Emma said softly, touching the child's shoulder gently. "Sweetheart, can you hear me?" The little girl's eyes flickered but didn't open. "What happened to her?" Emma asked, looking at Vittorio. For a long moment he didn't answer. Then, quietly, she saw something. Something she shouldn't have. Her mind, it's protecting her, I think. Shutting it out. Emma's chest tightened. Whatever had happened tonight, it had been bad enough to send a child into psychological shock. "She needs help too," Emma said. "Professional help. A therapist who specializes in trauma." "I know," Vittorio said, and there was such pain in his voice that Emma felt something crack in her chest. "I know what she needs. I know what I've done to her, bringing her into this life. I know." For a moment, they sat in silence, the only sound the distant drumming of rain on the roof. "Who's after you?" Emma finally asked. Vittorio looked at her for a long moment, as if weighing how much to tell her. "People who want what I have," he said finally. "People who think the only way to get it is to eliminate me and everyone I love. And the police can't help." Vittorio's laugh was bitter. "The police are part of the problem." Emma sat back on her heels, the full weight of the situation settling over her. She'd just helped a man who was clearly involved in something criminal, possibly very criminal. She'd brought him into her workplace, used supplies here, left her fingerprints all over a crime scene. Because that's what this was, wasn't it? A crime scene. "I should call someone," Emma said, though she made no move toward her phone. I'm not equipped for this." "I understand," Vittorio said. "And I won't stop you. But if you do, we're both dead before morning. Sophia too." "You keep saying that, but you think I'm exaggerating?" Vittorio interrupted, his voice sharp. "You think this is some movie drama? I have 3 associates dead tonight. My driver, my bodyguard, my advisor, all dead. They killed them in front of Sophia. In front of my 7-year-old daughter, He stopped, his composure cracking. He looked away, blinking hard. Emma felt sick. This little girl, sleeping fitfully beside them, had watched people die tonight. Multiple people. No wonder her mind had shut down. "I'm sorry," Vittorio said after a moment, his voice controlled again. "I'm sorry for involving you. I had nowhere else to go, no one else to turn to. Everyone I trust is either dead or compromised." "You don't know me," Emma pointed out. "I could be compromised too. You're a waitress at a diner, working a late shift in the rain, studying nursing on the side," Vittorio said. "I know how to read people, Ms. Emma. Just Emma." "Emma," Vittorio repeated. "You saw a man and a child in trouble, and instead of calling the police or running away, you helped. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are. Or maybe I'm just stupid," Emma muttered. "Maybe," Vittorio agreed, a ghost of a smile crossing his face. "But I don't think so. I think you're someone who still believes in doing the right thing, even when it's difficult, even when it's dangerous." Emma didn't know what to say to that. She stood up, needing space to think. The storage room suddenly felt very small. "I need to clean up the kitchen," she said, "the blood before morning shift comes in at 6. "I'll help." "You'll sit there and not die," Emma interrupted. "That's what you'll do. Keep pressure on that wound. Watch your daughter. And think very carefully about what happens next, because I need better answers than my doctor is coming." Emma left the storage room before Vittorio could respond, closing the door behind her. She stood in the kitchen for a moment, just breathing, trying to process. What had she done? Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from her roommate, Jess. You working late again? There's leftover pizza. Normal life. A text about pizza. It seemed to come from another universe. Emma didn't respond. She couldn't think about normal right now. She spent the next 20 minutes methodically cleaning the kitchen floor, using bleach and hot water, scrubbing until there was no trace of blood, no evidence that anything unusual had happened. She was thorough, almost obsessive about it, the repetitive motion giving her mind something to focus on besides the enormity of what she'd just done. When she finished, the kitchen gleamed. Perfect. Just another night at Rosie's diner. Emma looked at the clock. 11:34 p.m. She'd missed her bus. The next one wouldn't come for another hour. She almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Here she was, hiding a wounded man and a traumatized child in the storage room, worried about a missed bus. Emma went to the storage room door and knocked softly before entering. Vittorio was exactly where she'd left him, still maintaining pressure on his wound. Sophia had shifted slightly, her small hand reaching out in her sleep. Vittorio had moved closer to her, his free hand holding hers. Did you make your call? Emma asked. Not yet, Vittorio admitted. My phone, it might be tracked. I'm waiting until Marco can bring me a clean one. Marco? Someone I trust. He's on his way, but he's being careful, making sure he's not followed. Emma nodded slowly. When he gets here, you both leave. You take Sophia, you get your medical help, and you forget this place exists. Agreed? Agreed, Vittorio said, though something in his eyes suggested it wouldn't be that simple. Emma was about to say more when Sophia made a small sound. A whimper, then a word. Mama. Vittorio's face crumbled for just a second before he composed himself. Her mother died 3 months ago, he said quietly. Cancer. Sophia's been having nightmares ever since. And now this nightmare on top of that loss. Emma felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them back. She couldn't afford to be emotional. Not now. I'll get her a blanket, Emma said, her voice rough. It's cold in here. She found a clean tablecloth in the storage closet and brought it back, draping it gently over Sophia's small form. The little girl's face relaxed slightly under the warmth. Thank you, Vittorio said softly. Emma just nodded. She didn't trust herself to speak. She sat down on a crate across from them, her back against the wall. They waited in silence, listening to the rain, listening to Sophia's breathing, waiting for whatever came next. Emma checked her phone. 11:51 p.m. 9 minutes until midnight. 9 minutes until this awful Friday became Saturday. 9 minutes until a new day. Somehow Emma knew that when this night was over, nothing would ever be the same. She'd opened a door, literally, and on the other side was a world she'd never wanted to know existed, a world of violence and danger and impossible choices, but also a world where a father held his daughter's hand in the dark, where a little girl needed protection, where maybe, just maybe, one person's choice to help could make a difference. Emma looked at Vittorio, at Sophia, at the first aid supplies scattered around them. Tell me about her, Emma said suddenly. Tell me about Sophia. What does she like? What makes her happy? Vittorio looked surprised by the question. Then, slowly, he began to talk. She loves art, he said, a real smile touching his face for the first time. Drawing, painting, anything creative. Her room is full of her pictures. She wants to be an artist when she grows up. Says she's going to paint beautiful things to make people happy. As Vittorio talked about his daughter, her favorite color, purple, her imaginary friend, a cat named Whiskers, her habit of singing made-up songs, Emma saw him transform. Not a dangerous man, not a criminal, just a father, loving his child, desperate to keep her safe. And Emma realized that she'd already made her choice. Back in that alley in the rain, there was no going back now. Outside, the storm continued to rage, washing the streets clean, while inside Rosie's diner, 3 people who should never have crossed paths waited together in the quiet darkness, their lives forever changed by one open door. The minutes crawled by like hours. Emma sat on the overturned crate in the storage room, watching Vittorio's face grow paler under the harsh fluorescent light. His breathing had become more labored, shallow. The makeshift bandage she'd applied was holding, but blood had seeped through in places, creating dark stains on the white towel. How much longer? Emma asked, checking her phone again. 12:17 a.m. He'll be here, Vittorio said, his voice strained. Marco is careful. He has to be. Sophia stirred in her sleep, her small hand tightening around her father's fingers. She murmured something unintelligible, her face scrunching up as if fighting against whatever images haunted her dreams. Emma's heart ached watching her. 7 years old, the same age Emma had been when her mother left, when her world had first learned that safety was an illusion. But Emma's childhood trauma was nothing compared to what this little girl had experienced tonight. "Tell me what happened," Emma said quietly. "The real story, not the car accident version." Vittorio was silent for a long moment, his dark eyes studying her. Finally he spoke. "I run a business," he said carefully. "Import and export. Legitimate mostly. But there are complications. Competitors who don't believe in legal methods. Tonight, they made their position clear. They attacked you. Yes, we were leaving a restaurant. Sophia's favorite place. They make these desserts she loves, little chocolate cakes with sparklers on top. It was supposed to be a normal evening. Dinner, home, bedtime story. That's all." His voice cracked slightly on the last words. Emma could see him struggling to maintain composure. "There were men waiting in the parking garage," Vittorio continued. "They blocked our car. My security team tried to protect us, but..." He looked down at Sophia, sleeping peacefully now, unaware of the conversation. "They failed. Good men, loyal men, and they failed because I put them in that position." And Sophia saw it all. "Every second," Vittorio whispered. "She was in the back seat. I told her to close her eyes, to cover her ears, but she was so scared she couldn't move. She just froze. Watched everything." Emma felt tears burning behind her eyes again. She blinked them away. "How did you get away?" "My driver, before the end he managed to get the car moving, crashed through their blockade. But they damaged the vehicle. We made it maybe 3 miles before the engine died. I grabbed Sophia and ran. Found your alley. Found you." A knock on the back door made them both freeze. 3 soft taps. A pause. 2 more taps. Some kind of code. "That's Marco," Vittorio said, relief flooding his face. Emma stood up quickly, her heart pounding. "Stay here. I'll check." She left the storage room and moved through the kitchen, approaching the back door cautiously. Through the small window she could see a man standing in the alley. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark raincoat. His eyes scanned the area constantly, alert. Emma unlocked the door and opened it a crack. "You Emma?" the man asked. His voice was deep, with the same Italian accent as Vittorio's. "Who's asking?" "Marco Russo. I'm here for my friend and his daughter." Emma studied him for a moment. He looked to be in his 50s with gray hair and a weathered face. There was something solid about him, trustworthy. Or maybe she was just desperate to believe that. She opened the door wider. "He's in the back. Hurry." Marco stepped inside, carrying a large duffel bag. He moved quickly through the kitchen, following Emma to the storage room. When Vittorio saw him, something in his expression relaxed. "You made it." "Of course I made it," Marco said, kneeling beside his friend. He opened the duffel bag, pulling out medical supplies, professional ones. Proper bandages, antiseptic, surgical tape, even a blood pressure cuff. "Dr. Chen is waiting at the safe house. But first, let me stabilize you properly." Emma watched as Marco worked with efficient, practiced movements. He'd done this before, she realized. Many times, probably. "How bad?" Marco asked, examining the wound after removing Emma's makeshift bandage. "Could be worse," Vittorio said through gritted teeth. "Could be better," Marco countered. He glanced at Emma. "You did good work with what you had. Probably saved his life." Emma didn't know what to say to that. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly feeling very cold despite the warmth of the storage room. Marco worked in silence for several minutes, cleaning and properly dressing the wound. Then he took Vittorio's blood pressure, his expression growing concerned. "You've lost too much blood," Marco said. "We need to move you now. Dr. Chen has fluids ready." "We can't risk the street," Vittorio said. "Not yet. They'll have people watching." "I know, I brought the van parked 2 blocks over. Side streets, no cameras, we'll be fine." Vittorio nodded, then looked at Emma. "You should forget about us now. Go home. Your part in this is over." But even as he said it, Emma could see the problem. The security camera. The blood she'd cleaned up. The simple fact that she'd been here had helped them, had made choices that left traces. "The camera," Emma said. "Upstairs. It recorded everything." Marco and Vittorio exchanged a glance. "Where's the recording system?" Marco asked. "Office upstairs. My boss checks it maybe once a week, but..." "Show me," Marco said. Emma led him up the narrow staircase to Mr. Rossetti's office. The room was cluttered with paperwork, old receipts, and a desktop computer that looked ancient. The DVR system sat on a shelf, a small black box with blinking lights. Marco examined it for a moment, then pulled out a small device from his pocket. He connected it to the DVR, and Emma watched as he navigated through menus with practiced ease. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Editing tonight's footage," Marco said, removing the relevant sections. "It'll show you working, closing up, taking out the trash, locking up, nothing unusual. You were never in that alley. We were never here." Emma felt a chill run down her spine. This was really happening. She was really complicit in this now, helping them cover tracks, erase evidence. "I need to go home," Emma said suddenly. "I need to think." Marco looked at her with something like sympathy. "I understand this is overwhelming, but I need you to listen carefully. You helped us tonight and we're grateful, but now you need to be smart. When you go home, everything is normal. You worked your shift, you took the bus, you went home. That's all. You don't mention this to anyone. Not your roommate, not your friends, nobody." "I know how to keep my mouth shut," Emma said, more sharply than she intended. "I believe you," Marco said gently, "but I need you to understand the stakes. The people looking for Vittorio, they're thorough. If they even suspect you helped him, they won't ask nicely." The implication hung in the air between them. "Are you threatening me?" Emma asked, her voice quiet. "No," Marco said firmly. "I'm warning you. There's a difference. Vittorio would never let anyone hurt you, but I can't protect you if you draw attention to yourself." They went back downstairs. In the storage room, Vittorio had managed to sit up straighter. Sophia was beginning to stir, her eyes fluttering. "We need to move," Marco said to Vittorio. "Can you walk?" "Yes." But when Vittorio tried to stand, his legs buckled. Marco caught him, bearing most of his weight. "Papa?" Sophia's small voice, confused and scared. Vittorio's face transformed instantly, all the pain pushed aside by sheer willpower. "I'm here, Piccola, I'm right here." Sophia's eyes opened fully, and for a moment she looked around in confusion. Then her gaze landed on Emma, and fear flashed across her face. "It's okay," Vittorio said quickly. "This is Emma. She's a friend. She helped us." Sophia studied Emma with huge, dark eyes. She didn't speak. Emma knelt down to Sophia's level, careful to keep her distance, not wanting to scare the child further. "Hi, Sophia," Emma said softly. "Your dad told me you like to draw. I bet you're really good at it." Sophia's expression didn't change, but she nodded slightly. "Maybe someday you can show me some of your pictures," Emma continued. "I'd like to see them." Another small nod. Then Sophia looked back at her father, reaching for him with both arms. Vittorio winced as he lifted her, but he held her close. "We're going somewhere safe now," he told her. "Somewhere warm and quiet. Would you like that?" Sophia buried her face in his shoulder, her small body trembling. Marco looked at Emma. "We'll go out the back. You should leave through the front. Lock up normally. Go straight home." Emma nodded. This was it. They'd leave, she'd go home, and this bizarre night would be over. Except, "Wait," Emma heard herself say. "Your apartment, the safe house. Does it have what Sophia needs? Children's clothes, toys, things to make her comfortable?" Marco and Vittorio exchanged another glance. "We'll manage," Vittorio said. "She's 7 years old and she's traumatized," Emma said, her nursing training overriding her common sense again. "She needs familiar things, comfort items. And you," she looked at Vittorio, "you need someone who knows basic medical care to monitor that wound. Dr. Chen can't stay with you 24/7, can he?" "What are you saying?" Marco asked. Emma wasn't entirely sure herself, but she looked at Sophia's pale, frightened face, at Vittorio barely able to stand, and she knew she couldn't just walk away. "Where's this safe house?" Emma asked. "That's not information we can share," Marco said carefully. "Then give me a phone number. A way to check in, just for the next day or two until you're stabilized." Vittorio studied her for a long moment. "Why? Why risk this?" Emma looked at Sophia again. "Because she's a little girl who's been through something terrible. And because—" She paused, searching for the right words. "Because my father taught me that when you can help, you should help, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Marco pulled out a phone. Not a smartphone, Emma noticed, but an old flip phone. He wrote a number on a scrap of paper and handed it to her. "Memorize it," he said. "Then destroy the paper. If you need to reach us, call from a payphone, not your personal phone. Ask for Marco. Don't use any names." Emma looked at the number, committing it to memory. Then she tore the paper into tiny pieces, stuffing them in her pocket to dispose of later. "We should go," Marco said. "Now." He helped Vittorio to his feet, supporting most of his weight. Sofia clung to her father's neck, her eyes squeezed shut. Emma led them through the kitchen to the back door, checking the alley first. Empty. The rain had finally stopped, leaving everything wet and glistening under the streetlights. 2 blocks west, Marco said. "Black van. We'll be fine from here." Emma watched as they moved slowly into the alley, Marco practically carrying Vittorio, Sofia wrapped in her father's arms. They disappeared into the shadows, and Emma was alone. She stood there for a moment, just breathing, trying to process what had just happened. Then she went back inside, locked the door, and began the process of actually closing the diner. She moved mechanically, turning off lights, checking that everything was secure, grabbing her bag from the locker. In the locker, her nursing textbook sat waiting. Anatomy, pharmacology, a normal life, a normal future. She touched the books gently, then closed the locker door. Emma left through the front entrance, locking it behind her. The street was quiet, empty except for a few passing cars. She walked to the bus stop, her sneakers squelching on the wet pavement. The bus came 15 minutes later. Emma sat in the back, staring out the rain-streaked window, seeing nothing. Her apartment was dark when she arrived home just after 1 a.m. Her roommate Jess was already asleep. Emma could hear soft snoring from the other bedroom. She went to her own room, closed the door, and sat on the edge of her bed. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Home safe. Thank you. Emmy." Emma stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. She should sleep. She had a shift tomorrow, today technically, at 2 p.m. Just a few hours to rest. But sleep wouldn't come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Sofia's frightened face, Vittorio's blood on her hands, the moment in the alley when she'd made the choice to help. Around 3 a.m., Emma finally dozed off, her dreams filled with rain and shadows, and a little girl crying for her mother. She woke to her phone ringing. Bright sunlight streamed through her window. She'd forgotten to close the curtains. The clock read 11:47 a.m. The caller ID showed Rosie's Diner. Emma's heart sank as she answered. "Hello? Emma? It's Mr. Rossetti." Her boss's voice was tight with stress. "I need you to come in early. Something's happened." "What kind of something?" "The police are here. They're asking questions about last night. They want to talk to whoever closed." Emma's blood ran cold. "Police? Why?" "Just get here, as soon as you can." The line went dead. Emma sat frozen for a moment, panic clawing at her chest. Then training took over. She needed to think clearly, stay calm. She showered quickly, washing away any remaining evidence from last night. She dressed in clean clothes, jeans and a simple sweater, nothing like her work uniform. Normal. She looked normal. The bus ride to the diner felt eternal. Emma kept her head down, running through potential scenarios. What would the police ask? What should she say? The truth. A sanitized version of it. She'd worked her shift, closed up normally, went home. That was all. When she arrived at Rosie's, there were 2 police cars parked outside. Emma's hands were shaking as she pushed open the door. The dining room had several police officers inside. Mr. Rossetti stood by the counter looking stressed and angry. Marcus, the cook, sat at a booth talking to one of the officers. Mr. Rossetti spotted Emma and waved her over. "There you are. These detectives need to talk to you." 2 plainclothes officers approached. The first was a woman in her 40s, with short dark hair and tired eyes. Her badge read, Detective Sarah Morrison. The second was a younger man, maybe early 30s, his badge reading Detective James Park. "Emma Richardson?" Detective Morrison asked. "Yes. We need to ask you some questions about last night. Is there somewhere private we can talk?" They ended up in Mr. Rossetti's office upstairs, the same office where Marco had edited the security footage hours earlier. Emma sat in the guest chair, while the 2 detectives stood. "You worked the closing shift last night?" Detective Morrison asked, pulling out a small notebook. "Yes, 10 to 11. And you were alone after a certain point?" "Marcus left around 10:30. I finished closing by myself." "Did you notice anything unusual? Anyone hanging around outside, any suspicious vehicles?" Emma forced herself to maintain eye contact. "No, it was pretty quiet. The rain kept most people away." Detective Park spoke up. "Did you go outside at all during your shift?" "Just to take out the trash before locking up." "What time was that?" "Maybe 10:50, right before I locked the back door." "And you didn't see anyone in the alley?" Emma's heart was pounding so hard she was sure they could hear it. No, just took out the trash and came right back in. Why? What's this about? The detectives exchanged a glance. There was an incident last night, Detective Morrison said carefully. A few blocks from here. We're canvassing the area, talking to anyone who might have seen something. What kind of incident? I can't share details of an ongoing investigation, but if you remember anything unusual, anything at all, it's important you tell us. Emma nodded, trying to look concerned but not too concerned. Of course, but really, it was just a normal night. Your boss mentioned there are security cameras? Detective Park asked. Yes. One in the dining room, one in the kitchen. We'll need to see that footage. Of course, Mr. Rossetti said from the doorway. Emma hadn't heard him come up. Whatever you need. Emma watched as Mr. Rossetti logged into the DVR system and pulled up last night's footage. She held her breath as the video played. There she was, wiping down tables, refilling condiment bottles, taking out the trash. The camera caught her walking toward the back door, then returning seconds later, locking up, leaving. No Vittorio, no Sophia, no Marco. Just Emma, working a normal shift on a rainy Friday night. Marco's editing had been flawless. The detectives watched in silence. Then Detective Morrison made a note in her book. Thank you, that's helpful. That's it? Mr. Rossetti asked. For now. We may have follow-up questions. Detective Morrison handed Emma a business card. If you remember anything, call me, day or night. Emma took the card, her fingers barely trembling. I will. After the police left, Mr. Rossetti turned to Emma. You okay? You look pale. Just tired, late night. Well, take it easy today, we're not busy. Emma nodded and headed downstairs. Marcus was wiping down the grill, and he gave her a strange look as she passed. You all right? He asked. Fine. Why? You just seem, I don't know, different today. Emma forced a smile. Just need coffee. She poured herself a cup with shaking hands, trying to look normal, act normal, be normal. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Jess. Movie tonight? You need to relax, you've been so stressed. Emma stared at the message. Normal life. Movies with her roommate. That's what she should be doing. She typed back. Can't tonight. Studying. Rain check? The afternoon shift dragged by in a blur. Emma went through the motions, taking orders, serving food, refilling coffee cups, but her mind was elsewhere, replaying the night before, wondering about Vittorio and Sophia, worrying about what came next. Around 5 p.m. during a quiet moment, Emma excused herself to the bathroom. She pulled out the flip phone number Marco had given her. She'd memorized it, but the paper pieces were still in her pocket from last night. She found a payphone 2 blocks away. A rarity in the age of cell phones, but this neighborhood still had a few. She fed in quarters and dialed the number. It rang 3 times before Marco answered. Yes? It's Emma. Don't say my name. The police came to the diner today. A pause. What did they ask? About last night, if I saw anything unusual. They looked at the security footage. And? Your editing worked. They didn't see anything suspicious. Good. Listen carefully. You did well today, but you need to distance yourself from this. No more calls, no more contact, understand? How are they? Emma asked, unable to stop herself. Vittorio and Sophia? Another pause. Then quietly, the doctor is with them. Vittorio's stable. Sophia hasn't spoken since last night. Emma's heart clenched. She needs to see someone, a child psychologist who specializes in trauma. We're working on it. But Emma, you need to let this go, for your own safety. I know. Tell Vittorio I hope he recovers quickly, and tell Sophia that I'm thinking about her. I will. Take care of yourself. The line went dead. Emma hung up the phone and stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of everything settling on her shoulders. She'd done what she could. Now she had to move on, go back to her normal life, forget this ever happened. Except she knew she never would. When Emma returned to the diner, Marcus was waiting by the back door smoking a cigarette. Emma, he said as she approached. Can I ask you something? Sure. Last night, when I left, everything was normal? Yeah. Why? Marcus took a drag of his cigarette, studying her. I just got this weird feeling, like something happened after I left. The cops showing up today, you acting strange. He shook his head. Never mind, I'm probably just paranoid. It's been a weird day, Emma agreed carefully. Yeah. Marcus flicked ash onto the pavement. Hey, you'd tell me if something was wrong, right? If you needed help with something? For a moment, Emma was tempted to tell him everything. Marcus was a good guy, trustworthy, someone who'd worked at the diner for 15 years. But she remembered Marco's warning and she thought about Sophia's frightened face. "I'm fine," Emma said. "Really, just tired." Marcus nodded slowly, not quite believing her but not pushing either. "All right, but I'm here if you need anything. You know that, right?" "I know. Thanks, Marcus." The rest of the shift passed uneventfully. Emma clocked out at 10 p.m., exhausted in a way that went beyond physical tiredness. On the bus ride home, she stared out the window at the passing city lights. Somewhere out there, Vittorio was recovering from his wound. Sophia was trying to process trauma that no child should have to experience. And Emma was caught between two worlds, the normal life she'd been building and the dangerous reality she'd glimpsed last night. When she got home, Jess was on the couch watching TV. "Hey, you look exhausted. Rough shift?" "Something like that," Emma said, dropping her bag by the door. "Well, I saved you some dinner. Chicken stir-fry in the fridge." "Thanks. I'm just going to shower and crash." In her room, Emma finally allowed herself to break down. She sat on the edge of her bed and cried. For Sophia, for Vittorio, for the three men who'd lost their lives, for her own innocence now gone. She cried until she had no tears left, until she was empty and numb. Then she got up, wiped her face, and pulled out her nursing textbook. She had an exam next week. Life went on. She studied until past midnight, forcing her mind to focus on medical terminology, on procedures and protocols. This was her future. This was what mattered. But when she finally turned off the light and closed her eyes, she saw Sophia's frightened face in the dark. And Emma knew with absolute certainty that she couldn't just walk away. Not from a 7-year-old girl who needed help. Not from the choice she'd made in that rainy alley. No matter what it cost her. 3 days passed in uneasy normalcy. Emma went to work, studied for her exams, and tried to convince herself that the incident with Vittorio and Sophia was over. The police hadn't returned to the diner. No suspicious cars followed her home. Life appeared to have returned to its regular rhythm. But on Tuesday morning, everything changed. Emma's phone rang at 6:47 a.m., jerking her awake. The caller ID showed Mr. Rossetti. "Emma?" His voice was shaking. "Don't come to work today. There's been... the diner? It's gone." "What do you mean, gone?" "A fire. Last night, the whole building. The fire department says it was arson." Emma's blood turned to ice. She sat up in bed, her heart pounding. "Is everyone okay?" "No one was inside, thank God." "But Emma..." He paused. "The fire investigator found accelerant traces near the back door. Someone targeted us deliberately." After the call ended, Emma sat frozen, staring at her wall. This wasn't a coincidence. Someone had sent a message. Her phone buzzed again. An unknown number. "Not safe, they know. Payphone, 1 hour. Emma's hands trembled as she deleted the message. She dressed quickly, told Jess she had an early study group, and left the apartment. The payphone was in the same location as before. She dialed Marco's number with shaking fingers. "They found the diner," Marco said without preamble. "We don't know how, but they know someone helped Vittorio that night. They're looking for you." "How do you know?" "Because we have sources too." "Emma, you need to leave your apartment today, now." "I can't just disappear. I have school, my roommate, my life." "Your life won't matter if you're not alive to live it," Marco said bluntly. "Listen to me, pack essentials only. 1 bag. Meet me at the Newark Penn Station in 2 hours, south entrance." "Marco, I can't." "Vittorio wants to protect you. He blames himself for putting you in danger. Let us help." Emma closed her eyes, fighting back panic. "What about my roommate? If they're looking for me, she'll be fine. They want you, not her. But you can't tell her where you're going. The less she knows, the safer she is." 2 hours later, Emma stood at Newark Penn Station with a single duffel bag containing clothes, her nursing textbooks, and her laptop. She'd left a note for Jess. "Family emergency. We'll call soon. Don't worry." Marco appeared from the crowd, looking as serious as ever. "This way." He led her to a parking garage where a different vehicle waited, a nondescript sedan. In the back seat, Emma saw Sophia, clutching a stuffed rabbit. The little girl's eyes widened when she saw Emma. "You came," Sophia whispered, the first words Emma had heard her speak. "Of course I came," Emma said gently, sliding into the back seat beside her. They drove for over an hour, heading into rural Pennsylvania. Marco remained silent, focused on the road, constantly checking mirrors. Finally, they turned onto a gravel driveway that wound through dense woods. At the end sat a small cabin, isolated and surrounded by trees. Inside, Vittorio sat on a worn couch, looking better than the last time Emma had seen him, but still pale. His face showed relief when they entered. "You're safe," he said. "Thank God." "Safe?" Emma's voice rose despite herself. "My workplace was burned down. I've abandoned my apartment, my school, everything. How is any of this safe?" "You're alive," Vittorio said quietly. "That's what matters. And I swear to you I will fix this. I will make sure you can return to your life." Sofia had moved to her father's side, pressing close against him. She still held Emma's gaze, though, those dark eyes full of something Emma couldn't quite identify. Trust, maybe, or hope. "How?" Emma demanded. "How can you possibly fix this?" Marco stepped forward. "We've been gathering evidence. Documentation of their operations, financial records, everything. Vittorio is preparing to cooperate with federal authorities. You're going to testify?" Emma looked at Vittorio in surprise. "I'm going to end this," Vittorio said. "All of it. The organization, the rivalry, the cycle that cost Sofia her mother and nearly cost her everything else. I'm done." Emma sat down slowly on a nearby chair. "Witness protection. For Sofia and me, yes. And we'll make sure you're protected too, that you can return to your life safely." "When?" "Soon. We're negotiating terms with the FBI now. Maybe a week, maybe 2. Emma looked at Sofia, who was watching her with those enormous eyes. "And until then?" "Until then, you stay here with us," Marco said. "Away from the city, away from anyone looking for you." Emma wanted to protest, to insist this was insane, that she had responsibilities, a life to get back to. But looking at Sofia's face, at the way the little girl finally seemed to be emerging from her traumatic shell, Emma found herself nodding. "Okay," she said quietly, "but I need to contact my brother. He deserves to know I'm safe." "No direct contact," Marco said firmly. "I can arrange a message through secure channels." Emma's brother Derek lived 2 hours away with his wife and young son. They'd been estranged since their father's death. Derek had blamed Emma for not being there at the end, though she'd been working doubles to pay for nursing school. The wound between them had never healed, but he was still family, and he was ex-military, resourceful. If something happened to her, he'd need to know. That evening, after Sofia had gone to bed in the cabin's small bedroom, Emma sat with Vittorio on the porch. The woods were dark and quiet, peaceful in a way the city never was. "Tell me about her mother," Emma said softly. Vittorio was silent for a long moment. "Isabella. She was everything good. A teacher, gentle, patient. She saw something in me worth saving, though God knows why." He smiled sadly. "She got sick 2 years ago, cancer. She fought so hard for Sofia's sake. But in the end, I'm sorry. She made me promise before she died that I would get Sofia out of this life, that I would give her a normal childhood, a safe future. I failed her. I kept telling myself I could manage both, the business and being a father. I was wrong." "You're trying to fix it now," Emma said. "That counts for something." "Does it?" Vittorio looked at her. 3 good men are gone because of me. Your life is upside down because of me. My daughter can't sleep through the night without nightmares because of me. You didn't choose for those men to attack you." "No, but I chose the life that made me a target. Every choice has consequences, Emma. I'm just finally facing mine." Inside, through the window, Emma could see Sofia's small form in the bed, Marco sitting in a chair nearby keeping watch. "She's starting to talk again," Emma observed. "That's progress." "Because of you," Vittorio said. "She trusts you. I think you remind her of her mother. The gentleness." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm not sure what I'm doing. I'm just trying to help. That's more than most people would do." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds of the woods. Tomorrow would bring more challenges. Negotiations with the FBI, plans for their safety, the slow process of healing. But for now, in this quiet moment, there was peace. And for the first time since opening that door in the rain, Emma felt like maybe, just maybe, they would all make it through this, together. The FBI negotiations took 10 days. Emma spent that time at the cabin with Vittorio, Sofia, and Marco, existing in a strange bubble outside normal life. She helped Sofia with drawings, read her bedtime stories, and watched the little girl slowly emerge from her trauma. Each day brought small victories, a laugh, a full conversation, a night without nightmares. On the 11th day, 2 federal agents arrived at the cabin. Special Agent Catherine Walsh and her partner presented Vittorio with the final agreement. In exchange for his complete testimony and evidence against both criminal organizations, he and Sophia would enter witness protection with new identities in a different state. And Emma? Vittorio asked immediately. Ms. Richardson will be protected during the trial proceedings, Agent Walsh assured them. After the arrests are made, she'll be able to return to her life. We'll ensure her safety. That evening, Emma sat with Sophia on the porch steps, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Will I ever see you again? Sophia asked quietly, her small hand finding Emma's. Emma's heart broke a little. I don't know, sweetheart, but I'll never forget you. And wherever you go, whatever new name you have, you'll still be the same amazing, brave girl. I drew you something, Sophia said, pulling a folded paper from her pocket. For you to keep. Emma unfolded it carefully. It was a crayon drawing of 3 figures holding hands under a rainbow. A tall man, a small girl, and a woman with dark hair. Above it, in careful letters, Sophia had written, My family that saved me. Tears slipped down Emma's cheeks. It's beautiful. I'll treasure it always. The next morning, the arrests happened simultaneously across 3 states. Marco called with the news. 26 people taken into custody, both organizations dismantled. The threat was over. 2 days later, a black SUV arrived to transport Vittorio and Sophia to their new life. Emma stood in the driveway, her duffel bag packed, watching them prepare to leave. Vittorio approached her, moving carefully. His wound had healed well, but he was still recovering. I've arranged something for you, he said, handing her an envelope. It's not enough. It could never be enough for what you've done. But it's a start. Inside was a cashier's check. Emma's eyes widened at the amount, enough to cover her nursing school tuition completely with money left over. I can't accept this, she whispered. You can and you will, Vittorio said firmly. It's from legitimate sources, properly documented. Use it to finish your education. Become the nurse you're meant to be. Help other people the way you helped us. Sophia ran over, throwing her arms around Emma's waist. Thank you for being kind to us, she said, her voice muffled against Emma's shirt. Emma knelt down, hugging her tightly. Thank you for being so brave. Promise me you'll keep drawing, okay? Keep making beautiful things. I promise. They held each other for a long moment. Then Marco gently touched Sophia's shoulder. It's time, little one. Emma watched the SUV disappear down the gravel drive, taking with it 2 people who had changed her life forever. 6 months later, Emma Richardson walked across the stage at her nursing school graduation, diploma in hand. The auditorium was filled with proud families, and in the 3rd row, her brother Derek sat with his wife and son, applauding loudly. They'd reconciled during Emma's family emergency. The crisis had brought them back together. Her new job started Monday, emergency room nurse at Newark Medical Center. She'd found a new apartment, rebuilt her life, and moved forward. But she never forgot. In her locker at the hospital, she kept Sophia's drawing in a protective sleeve. Every shift before she started her rounds, Emma would look at those 3 crayon figures holding hands and remember the night a door opened in the rain. One Tuesday afternoon, a package arrived at the hospital addressed to Emma. Inside was a single item, a professional painting of a rainbow over mountains signed simply S. No return address, no note needed. Emma hung it in her living room where she could see it every day. She never learned where Vittorio and Sophia had gone, what names they now used, what their new life looked like. But sometimes, on quiet nights, Emma imagined Sophia in a classroom somewhere, drawing pictures, making friends, living the normal childhood her mother had wanted for her. And Emma knew that one choice, one moment of compassion in a dark alley, had changed 3 lives forever. She'd opened a door, and behind it she'd found not danger alone but also courage, purpose, and the profound truth that sometimes the right choice is simply to help, no matter the cost. Emma Richardson went to work each day knowing she'd done exactly that, and it was enough.